This is The Roadmap with Ted Jenkin.
Hey everybody, I'm Ted Jenkin, and this is another episode of The Roadmap exclusively here on America's Small Business Network, ASBN.com. Every week, what do I bring you? Some of the best CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners all around the United States. People want to know, how do I start a business? How do I scale a business? And maybe one day, how do I exit stage left? I have seen a lot of businesses and a lot of people that work in the community. And when you talk about community marketing, I'm bringing on one of my friends here today, Steve Beecham. He's the CEO of Hometown Mortgage. I feel like one of the best community marketers that I've ever met. But I want to start this because at least locally here in Atlanta, there's been this myth that I've been hearing for, 15 or 20 years, that there's an official mayor of Alpharetta, Georgia, one of the wealthiest suburbs in the entire country. And then there's the unofficial mayor of Alpharetta, and everyone says it's Steve Beecham. True, false? Let's get it out on the table here.
It's true. It's true.
How'd you become the unofficial mayor of Alpharetta?
I'm the unpaid mayor of Alpharetta.
The unpaid mayor.
Yeah, but then that allows me to do stuff that the paid mayor can't do, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I can get up, local people and say, hey, let's move something in a certain direction, and so far we, sometimes we have success with that. But what happened was I wrote this book called Bass-Ackwards Business.
Bass-Ackwards Business.
Because, in the South, bass-ackwards is kind of like how you can say a cuss word and not really say a cuss word. But it's about somebody doing something totally different. And when I first got into selling stuff, everybody's like, you got to do all these things. You got to be a closer, you got to, and I'm like, this doesn't feel good. So I said, I'm going to go this way. And the way that I went was, how do I build relationships? I went on this long study of how do you get people to call you and say, hey man, I want to spend money with you.
Yeah, that's a good feeling when
people
call you and they say that.
That's what we want,
right?
So I wrote, during the crash, I wrote this book called Bass-Ackwards Business, How to Be the Mayor of Your Village. And the village that I was talking about is really your sphere of influence. So it's not like the whole town of Alpharetta, but anybody that I meet, now they're into my village,
pretty close.
Right? But so that's what being an unofficial mayor.
What I find really interesting about it is that the whole world's been talking today about social media, digital marketing, and all this stuff. Yet, to a degree, things that worked 30 years ago work really, really well today. An example of this is that I always knew that you're kind of that guy that you got breakfast at that same spot on the corner. It was eggs and something. I can't remember what it was on the corner, but you were there all the time. But like the simple fact, Steve, of just taking a meeting to have a cup of coffee. How do you approach those little center of influence, networky, one-on-one type meetings?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, I think if somebody's going to call me and say hey, somebody told me to call you. Well, then my customer's really the guy that talked to them, right? So all of those are influencers in town. And so anybody I can meet in town and build a relationship with that's based on trust, first they got to like you and then they can trust you. Yeah. And if they know that I'm not there to sell them anything, I'm there to, so the switch for me was, I'm not here to sell you something. I'm here to bring my assets, not my agenda, to this conversation. I'm here to help you grow your business, meet who you need to meet in the community. And who's doing that, right? Is anybody calling you going, hey, Ted, how can I help you grow your business?
Isn't that crazy? You want business from me and you never made one bank deposit with me at all. Why don't more business owners think like that? Not like eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Why aren't more, let me connect you with somebody without expecting anything in return? Why are more people not operating that way? Because it's worked since the dawn of man, if you will, right?
Well, Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, some of those people will help you get what you want. So when I started in my I've had 4 or 5 businesses, but when I started doing that and I'm selling to the public, I said, you know what? I'm going to go with that wholesale. I'm going to make that my mission. That I'm not going to, because see what happens when you make a cold call, or when you go to make a cold call, you say, I hope they don't tell me no, right? So then you don't make cold calls because you're afraid somebody's going to tell you no. Well, what happens if you totally take that off the table and you say, I'm not going to make a cold call. I'm only going to make a call where I want to be Santa Claus for that person today. I'm only going in to help them. And what if I help 10 people today? Will any of those people send me a customer?
Yeah, but they will.
And what I found out is they will. And so that's my whole business model.
So beyond like that, I call it block and tackle marketing,
Right.
which I do think you're brilliant at it. When you look at the community, there are all these organizations and they've been around forever and ever. You look at places like the Chamber of Commerce, you look at places like the Rotary, and for the business owner that's there that's saying this question to themselves, Steve, is that really worth my time? What would you say to them?
100%. And so here's the deal. So when I call people, when I was writing my second book, I started interviewing people and I started saying, hey, where do you get your business? And an interesting thing started showing up. People would say, and most of the people I was talking to were what I call professional service people. They're financial advisors or mortgage people, bankers, real estate agents, insurance people. And every one of them would say, oh, I'm real involved in my church, or I'm real involved in my chamber, I'm real involved in youth sports, right? And so when you looked at their business, it was coming from those areas where they spent the most time. And then I said, well, then if you're real involved in youth sports, what happens if you go join the chamber? Do you double your business? And what we started finding out was yes, because then the people that were over at the park weren't necessarily the people at the chamber, who weren't necessarily the people at your church. So wherever you get involved, you grow the trust factor there, you get more referrals. And so I call them marketing habits. And I say, if you have a habit of going and coaching little boys soccer, and you're doing that all the time, then just create a habit of going to your church all the time, or create a habit of going to the Rotary Club or the Chamber of Commerce. And if you create that habit and you start doing those things, your business will double every time you go to another one of those things.
Isn't it amazing that when you show up and you add value over time, it's magical how things come back to you in return. It really is. Tell me about the other side of this, because you do a lot of branding stuff. And I noticed one day that I was driving in town in Atlanta here, and all of a sudden I see this older, well, look new, but it was older, tricked out car. And I said, that's Hometown Mortgage on the side. Now, why did you decide to do that? Was it a marketing stunt, or did you just pull a parking spot and ask the city of Alpharetta to say, just let me stay here forever?
It goes further back. So back when I had my kids, the first Hummers came out. Remember the first Hummer? The H1, the military Hummer. And I thought, man, that's cool. And my kids, every time we'd see one, and they were younger, they go, oh, look at that cool car. And then I said, man, I'd love to have one of those. And then I was reading some stuff about some real estate agents talking about how they were really growing their business by logoing it. And then I read some more marketing stuff, guerrilla marketing. Why don't you have your name on the side of your vehicle, And I thought, well, why don't I do that? Right. So I went and looked at the Hummer, and it was like, I don't know, at the time it was, $70,000. I'm like,
crazy.
Oh my God. It was like this, it'd be like buying a $500,000 car. So I had a friend of mine that was a real estate agent, and he had 2 Hummers. So I called him. I said, hey man, what would you charge me to rent your Hummer for the summer? And so it became the Hummer for the summer. And I rented his Hummer, and I went and got this magnetic thing that said Hometown Mortgage. I put it on the side, and I drove that around all summer long, and the kids would just flock to this thing. And so I was always at the park, and it just, it was unbelievable for my business.
But that's the kind of thing that you can't really measure ROI, right? You can't really, because people are like, I saw a Hummer, then I decided to do a mortgage with you. It doesn't work that way.
But it does.
All that branding definitely does. It provides that collateral, right, to help people to want to do business with you.
6 months ago, I had a guy call me. He said, I'm calling you because I remember your Hummer from 15 or 20 years ago. He said, I remember seeing that. We moved out of the country with my company. We're coming back. And I couldn't believe you were still in business, and I remembered you because of that yellow Hummer. But so after that, I logoed my dirt bike, because I started dirt biking. I logoed my street bike. And then one day I was on my street bike, and I pulled up at this gas station. This guy pulls up in this 66 red Chevy pickup truck. It was so cool. I was like, dude, that truck is awesome. And he goes, man, I got to sell it. And I said, why? He said, my wife wants a swimming pool. I said, where do you live? He said, I live about 2 miles down the road. I said, I'm following you home. He said, you follow me home? I said, yeah, I'm fixing to buy you a damn truck. And I bought that truck.
You bought it, then you loaded it,
right
then you put it in
there.
the
I
town.
bought it. I wrote him a check. He's like, well, I don't know if you're. I said, call the bank. The check's good, and I drove away with the truck.
So you built this this mortgage business, and obviously back in that 2008, 2009, we hit maybe arguably one of the worst times in the last 100 years during that Great Recession. And mortgages were rolling, and then all of a sudden, whoop, the brakes went on. How did you manage the business during that time, Steve, when everything just got put to a halt?
It was terrible. It was the worst time of my life. I mean, it got so bad for us that my wife and my kids, we all moved into my mom's basement, into my old bedroom.
Oh.
That's how bad it got. I had to unwind so much stuff. I had commercial properties, residential properties, beach house, lake house. I mean, we had a lot of stuff because we were making money and we were rolling. And then we had to unwind all of that. Had some really good bankers that helped me unwind some of that stuff, thank God. And but during that time, two great things happened to me. And the main one was I learned this philosophy that I called shuck your shit.
Shuck your shit.
Shuck your
I like
shit.
it.
So when things are getting bad, you have a tendency to hold on as long as you can, and you usually hold on too long, and then it's too terrible, right? And so the faster you shuck your shit, you get rid of everything you got. Sell your motorcycles, your four-wheelers, your everything. Try to keep your house, but sell everything else. Generate whatever cash. It's worth now half of what it was.
Right. It is what it is.
But it's the payments and it's all that other stuff, the insurance and all that stuff that goes with it. And so I've learned, that's my new philosophy. If things are slowing down, I just start shucking stuff as fast as I can. And so
smart.
And so now I use that. People will call me, my business is bad and I'm trying to hang on. I'm like, no, dude, sell the daggum thing, right? Get rid of it. So that's one of my big things that came out of that. And then the other one was that I got in the mortgage business kind of in a weird kind of way, but it was fun because we were making money. And then we weren't making any money. I mean, there was no business. And so during that time, I started rethinking about, do I really want to be in the mortgage business? And then that got me into reading about what is my life purpose. And so I started really going deep into why am I here? What do I bring to the people that I meet? And so I came up with this life purpose that my purpose is to help people get from where they are right now to where they want to go. And so I enjoy that interaction with somebody when they're saying, man, I'm trying to figure out how to grow this business. I'm right here and I want to go here.
Right.
Or I'm trying to figure this relationship out or whatever it is. And so I started thinking, okay, if I sit back and I'm looking at life through that lens, somebody walks in to get a mortgage and they say, I'm living here, Steve, and I want to live over here. And so I go, oh, well, then that's my purpose, is to help you get from here to here. And then from that, I wrote a book. And then when I wrote that book, I had to borrow $500 from my mom to print the daggum book. And I had gotten a speech with Edward Jones in downtown Atlanta. And I drove down there in my Hummer, and I couldn't park in the parking garage because I had the tire and all this stuff on top.
The clearance.
And I never will forget I parked in an illegal spot because I was running late for this meeting, and this guy walks out of the building, the security guard, and he goes, man, they're going to tow your car. He said, park it in the parking garage. I said, man, I don't have the money to pay for the parking garage. I really did. I had nothing. And he said, man driving a Hummer ain't got any money.
Got no
I said,
money.
dude, I'm just telling you, it's just where it is. He said, just leave it right there. Give me the keys. I'll take care of it. I went in, I did this speech. I had 50 books, and there were 50 guys in the audience. And the guy had told me I had an hour speech, and by the time I got there, he said, we're down to 15 minutes. Everybody else is running over. You only have 15 minutes. So I spoke for 15 minutes, and then I said, okay, I guess my time's up. And he says, everybody's going, no, go on. Anyway, I got my whole hour in. And when I got through, I said, I got these books. If anybody wants to buy them, they're $20 a piece. And I sold all 50 of them. And I walked out there with my pockets piled with $20 bills. I went down to the security desk. I emptied my pockets. I threw all this money out on the desk. And I told the security guy, I said, you can take whatever you want. Thank you for letting me park. He goes, man, what do you do? I said, I'm in the mortgage business. He goes, you know what? I need to refinance my house. So he took a 20, and then I put it all back in my pocket. And the next day he called me, and I refinanced his house. That was the first loan I'd done in like 2 months.
That's crazy.
And so anyway, so that book launched me on the speaking tours, and that money, I made $100,000 that year, like 2010, speaking. I still today can't believe I made that much money. I went from zero.
Yeah, but it got you through the gap.
It saved my family. It saved my life. And
what about on the other side now, with mortgage rates during the pandemic going down to really record lows, never been seen before. People were refinancing their homes like ordering French fries at McDonald's. Right. How do you know when's the right time to exit this kind of business, because interest rates can be so sensitive?
The problem with our business is you're not in control of the growth of the business to a certain degree, right? I can't control the way the economy and interest
Fed raises rates 500 points in a year.
Which during the crash, at one time I had, I think, probably the second largest mortgage brokerage company in the state. And we had 30, 40 employees. And then after the crash, it was me and my wife. And that was at that point where I realized I can only control me. I'm just going to build the business around me. Since then, my son has come in. It's built around the two of us. It's fine. It's more of a lifestyle business, instead of trying to grow. But I've had friends that were able to ramp it and sell at the peak. But if they didn't sell at the peak, they lost everything.
Right.
So
I wanted to ask you that just as one more as a crossover in here. So you've done all this marketing on this side, but I notice now that you're doing more videos and more social media. What's the goal behind that now? Because you're so good at the community marketing.
Well, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. I was watching.
We didn't say the F word here, so we're good. We're good.
I saw one of his things, and he said something like, hey, if ESPN called you and said you can advertise as many commercials as you want all day long on Saturday on ESPN, how many do you want? He's like, you'll take all of them. And I went, yeah. And he's like, that's what Facebook is. Quit thinking that because you just made this one post that the whole world knows about it, right? They don't. And I thought, okay, well then I'm not really doing enough. And then I met some other marketing guys, and they were saying like, look, dude, forget about who's looking at it. You just need to go get as many friends as you can, as many LinkedIn people as you can, because basically that's a bigger audience. So when you post, there's more people to look at what you're posting. And then from previous knowledge, I started an e-newsletter way back in the early days. And we realized real quickly that if we sent a newsletter out about mortgages, then people started deleting us. And I said, you know what, the philosophy is on an e-newsletter is going to be, just don't delete me. So if I can show up in your inbox and you don't delete me, that's a victory, right? Because you had to look at that email and see my name.
Right.
So we started making our newsletter about the community, what was going on in the community. Hey, there's a country fair this weekend. There's a concert this weekend. And so then the community started sending me the information to put in my newsletter. Hey, we're having a nonprofit thing, or we're doing this at the school. Can you promote it for us? And so we've got like 6,000 people in the community opening that newsletter every week. It's phenomenal. But take that back. And then my son got in the business with me. And that's when I realized that I needed to change my videos to educational videos.
Right.
He would ask me, hey, Dad, how do you do this? Or what's a 2-1 buy down? Because he was new and he didn't know. And so I would explain to him, I go, we need to do a video on that. Because if you don't know, everybody else doesn't know. Right. Because we have a tendency when we're in our companies, we already have the knowledge and we think everybody else sees it the way we do, and they don't, right? So you got to educate. So because of him, we started doing educational videos. So our goal is anytime somebody calls us and says, hey, what is so-and-so, or how much should closing costs be, or how much do I have to put down? We write that down, and then once a month we get together and we bring in a video guy and we record videos on the questions that people just ask.
Great stuff. Beach, where can people find your books if they want to get any of the books that you've written? I know they're great.
It's on Amazon. I've got a stevebeecham.com webpage. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. But stevebeecham.com is probably the best way to do it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, coming on the show today. We learned a few things today, folks. Certainly, you have to shuck your shit, as Beach said. 2, be nice to your mom. You never know, you might have to live in her basement. And every meeting that you go on, just try to be Santa Claus. If you do that, you probably have a better chance of growing your top line revenue. I'm Ted Jenkin. This has been this episode of The Roadmap, and thanks so much for watching America's Small Business Network.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Ted Jenkin.